What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, February 16th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 259. I am wearing my Buffalo Bisons jersey because for a lot of teams it is opening day for the spring training action. Pitchers and catchers reported for duty. And while we do not cover the Buffalo Bisons a ton on this show, much at all anymore, because it wasn't something that people took interest in, I still enjoy myself a good Buffalo Bisons action on like a Tuesday night. Get some drinks, partake in some food, and watch some good baseball because the games last like 2.5 hours now, which is delightful.
I was going to say, are you talking slower all of a sudden because you're talking about baseball and it's a little bit of a slower game?
I am glad you caught on to that. I was all planned from the get-go.
Well, you handled it well. Yeah, they didn't do a ton for us, but they are fun. They're still a great night out, and I'm sure, like you mentioned, we will casually keep an eye on them, throw them in here every once in a while, do some basic updates on what they're doing. But in general, they're still a really fun part of Buffalo and really glad to have it. I mean, most cities don't have the amount of sports that Buffalo does, especially being what we all know is a small market because we get it shoved down our faces all the time that we are a small market team. Well, we got a lot of teams for that small market, and the Bisons are one of them. Might not be major leagues, but still, like you mentioned, a really good time to go out and, late, or I don't know, midsummer, early summer, when it's still kind of cool at night, go enjoy a Bisons game with some drinks and some food and just have a relaxing evening watching some baseball.
Definitely not April or
nope,
sometimes early May
stay away from
either. Yeah,
Wait
that's
till
cold. Real
late
cold.
June.
Yeah. Why they start baseball this early and go that late never makes any sense to me. 162 games is far too many, but they'll never shrink it because money is too important to greedy people. So if you're one of those greedy people, you can still follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective. And if you're not greedy, you can follow us on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. We will kick this off real quick on your thoughts on the Super Bowl, because the last time we recorded it was pre-Super Bowl. It was early afternoon on that Sunday, and then we spent the next 6 hours just waiting for the game to kick off, and then it kicked off, and the Kansas City Chiefs are back-to-back champions. Phil, what are your thoughts on the overall game, the commercials? What's your thoughts on Kansas City repeating and looking for a three-peat, something that's never been done? Just overall thoughts on Super Bowl, what was it, 58 maybe? I don't even know. I can't do time, Roman numerals. It confuses my brain.
The food was good, so that was number one. And if you're not in the Super Bowl, I feel like that's most important. When it first, I don't know. I feel like you and I kind of talked about not caring too much, and when it first kicked off, I really didn't have a ton of interest in the game. But as it went on, I really just didn't want Kansas City to win, and they did what they seem to always do, and they won again. They're really annoying at this point. It's pretty much the Patriots all over again. Once there was that void, I was hoping it wouldn't be filled by one singular team. It would be nice if there was some kind of talent rotation in the NFL, not just one team dominating from one side. And, of course, it has to be the AFC side. We can't even, have an NFC domination. It has to be AFC between the Patriots and Kansas City. It's great that they're not in our division because that was also extra annoying for the Patriots. But like my brother was kind of saying as we were watching it, it's good to have a villain in a way because without Kansas City making it, you just really don't care who wins as much. At that point, I guess you kind of want AFC, because you're in the AFC, so you want them to win. But for the most part, if there's no Kansas City or no Patriots, you just don't have – I don't have the emotional attachment to the game at all if there's no real villain. So it was nice to have them there in that aspect, but not happy they won. Overtime was interesting and kind of fun to see the rules that the Buffalo Bills caused finally put into action, and then San Francisco would go on to ruin those rules by just being terrible and not realizing that if you want to beat the Chiefs, you have to score a touchdown. I don't know why other teams around the league haven't learned this yet from the Bills. We've given them plenty of blueprints on how to beat them, and it's not field goals. But here we are again. Kansas City won. Commercials were pretty boring. There were a few funny ones. I feel like commercials have gone real downhill for the Super Bowl. It's also interesting to see because they cost so much. You see trailers now just have pretty much a really quick teaser. Then it's like, oh, go watch it online because we can't afford to have a commercial in the Super Bowl because it's crazy expensive. So I don't know. Commercials were okay. Food was great. Don't like Kansas City winning. They're very annoying, but congrats to them, I guess.
So I was on Talking Buffalo right after the Sabres game. It was a real quick notice that I jumped on. It was right after the Sabres game, and it kind of, I believe the audio went out on Wednesday. So if you haven't listened to that, go listen to that. I kind of shared my thoughts on it there, where doing this podcast for going on close to 3 years now, I've been able to change how I watch sports, and it's a bit of a learning curve for me because going into this game, I honestly didn't care who was going to win. Middle of the game, I still shared those same thoughts, and even in overtime, I honestly did not care who was going to win that whatsoever. I know a lot of people around Buffalo, you included, did not want Kansas City to win. You shared like the villain card, which I get. It makes sense. I have found it a lot easier to take off my biased hat towards Buffalo sports and kind of just put on this unbiased attitude in it. And it just actually felt good to watch a Super Bowl where, you know, there's no, I said it on the Talking Buffalo, there's no fantasy football implications. There's no Bills implications. There's literally nothing that is affecting my life or pretty much anything with this show with that game whatsoever. So I could just sit back, relax, enjoy the game. I love the new overtime rules. I think that adds a new element of strategic advantages that we've learned that there are, where personally, I see it both sides. I see if you take the ball first, it's beneficial if you were to score a touchdown, because then if they come down and score a touchdown second, you get the ball first to try to win it in sudden death. But if you take it second, everybody kept saying, hey, you know what you got to go get. You have the advantage of going for two and trying to take that win right there with, you know, they would still get the ball back. You have to do sudden death, but you get that advantage of if they don't score, you win the game. If your defense gets one stop, you win the game. And you also get the advantage of, hey, this is pretty much do or die. If you don't go down there and score a field goal or a touchdown, San Francisco is going to win. So you get to use all four of your downs all the way down the field, which they kept saying. So it's another element to playoff football that we hadn't been able to see. And I think it was a great time for them to actually have to use it, which was the Super Bowl, in a game that was more defensive minded, some mistakes. I think Kansas City had 4 or 5 fumbles and recovered 4 of them. But in the end, it's just, for the Bills aspect of it, you're looking at Kansas City and just going, this is the worst roster that Patrick Mahomes has ever had, and he still won the Super Bowl. And they have so much cap space next year. And I think I'm talking about, what if Kansas City goes and gets T. Higgins, Phil? Like, they get T. Higgins, they get the 32nd pick, they draft a rookie wide receiver then. They still have Travis Kelce who's coming back. They got Rashee Rice, all those weapons, and you're not paying anybody big money besides Chris Jones, who they're going to have to pay on the defensive line. This team is going to be drastically better next year, and they won the Super Bowl with their worst team that they've had under Patrick Mahomes under center. It's a scary proposition for any AFC teams and the NFL in general.
Yeah, for sure. They're not going anywhere. They're here to stay. I mean, this game and this season, I wish was credited a lot more to the defense for them, as it should be. I don't know. I feel like even in that game, and even Romo kept mentioning about the Bills game, that if Chris Jones hadn't pressured Allen on the late play where he had Shakir wide open in the end zone, if he wasn't pressured on that play, he could step into that throw. That's probably a touchdown. There were 2 plays in this game, in the Super Bowl, that if Chris Jones hadn't pressured Purdy, they probably would have had a touchdown for San Fran. And yet the quarterback, which is always going to happen, it's never pretty much not going to happen. The QB for the winning team pretty much always gets all the glory. But to me, it was the Kansas City defense I mean, how many opportunities did San Francisco have? I mean, even the interception that they got the turnover on was at the Kansas City 40, and they got nothing. Yep. They got nothing out of it. So I mean, San Francisco had so many opportunities to pull away in that game, and the Kansas City defense held in there the entire time, all the way until, obviously getting KC to overtime and then winning it. So, I mean, I think their defense, especially for the entire season where the offense was one of the worst Kansas City offenses we've seen in a long time, and yet they were winning games and ended up having a really good record, won their division, all this stuff. I mean, I feel like just their offense clicked at the right time for sure, but I feel like their defense deserves a heck of a lot of credit for their season that they just had.
I agree. So that officially ends the 2023 NFL season. We are looking towards the 2024 season that is already starting off. There's been, pro days. People have been mocking for weeks and weeks and possibly even months now. I'm not ready to dive into that. I'm still decompressing from what was a blood pressure heightening, inducing NFL season for the Buffalo Bills.
As they have been for about 4 years now.
Yeah, I'm expecting more of it in the next season, and there's a lot of work they need to do just to get cap compliant before the new year officially flips over in March. So there's going to be a lot of moves made and a lot of things to shake out, and we'll cover that as it pops up. But we'll move forward here. Second segment, Buffalo Sabres. This is what I was talking about on Talking Buffalo. It's still confusing. I'm going to try to talk as positive as I can about this team, but they're still aggravating. 7-0 win over the LA Kings, who are looking to make the playoffs this year, and they're in a good playoff position. 7-0, Phil. 7-0. Unbelievable. Peterka, Greenway had 2. Oposo, Darlene, Benson, and Tuck were the goal scorers. UPL, 33 of 33 saves. Yeah, that's a shutout. And shots 33-24 in favor of the Kings. What was your thoughts on this absolute dominating win for the Buffalo Sabres?
I have a question right off the bat for you real quick to make sure I get my own notes right. Would you consider a tipped shot in front of the net, that would be considered a front of net goal, right? Because it doesn't go in unless it's tipped?
Yes.
All right, so 5 of their 7 goals were in a weird spot to score from, which we've talked about a lot recently, which is right in front of the net.
No.
I know.
Got it. What?
It's a...
what is this sorcery you're talking about?
It's a strange area to score from. I know most teams in the NHL also, apparently, they follow the Sabres, and everyone shoots from the outside, according to the Sabres.
Wait, so this is a known thing?
Yeah, it is...
Nobody bothered to tell the Sabres?
No. They told them last year, but this year they forgot to open that chapter of the book. They got to the first chapter that said, cause some havoc and throw pucks at the neck. They were like, all right, we need a lot of shots per game. That's great. We got that. And then they didn't continue on to chapter 2 that said you also score the majority of your goals from directly in front of the net. They just never made that part of got to that part of the book. So they
took a PK out of the schooling here, where it was just like the quick notes, where it's just you read the first lines and then you're like, I can make this story work.
Exactly. And they could not make the story work. And here we are, Granato finally saying, hey, we have to score from in front of the net. And look at that, 5 of their 7 goals right in front of the net. And the other 2, Tuck's off to the side from the corner. That's a weird angle shot. And then Darlene's was pretty much down the middle, a little bit off to the side, but he was also not at the point. He was skating in hard and made a really good wrist shot. So even his, not right in front of the net, but better than they were shooting for the longest time. And look at this one. They got outshot in this game and scored 7 goals. It's so weird that when you have high chances, high probability, high scoring chances.
High danger chances.
There it is. That's where I was looking for. That you don't need to shoot 50 times a game when the opportunities are incredible and the other team outshoots you. That's fine, and you win the game. It's weird. It's a weird system that, everybody, I think, in the NHL understands except the Sabres. But they learned, and hopefully they can build on this. And as far as UPL goes, congratulations. You are incredible. I don't know. I as far as his future, I don't want to go that far past this one lovely win, but he is the first goalie with 4 shutouts in 1 year since Ryan Miller's 6 in 2011 and 2012. So it's been a minute or two That was from ESPN, so thank you for that. But UPL in general, just playing absolutely incredible. I know shutouts like this, and all shutouts in the NHL, you got to get a little bit lucky. There was one or two posts and one scramble in front of the net, but for the most part, he's playing incredible. And as far as what I don't know what they do is, I meant for Levi and just the future of this team, I don't know how you get rid of this player. I just don't know. I don't know what they do with Levi and UPL as far as the future goes. UPL is just playing what they hoped he would be. We know goalies take a little bit of time to develop, and he did, and now he is just playing incredible. Like this, he's just playing amazing, amazing hockey. And again, we've talked about it a little bit recently that I don't think he's going to get the credit he deserves for the stretch run that he is on, because he's sadly on the Sabres, and that's just bad for him right now as far as getting league-wide recognition, but he's playing out of his mind, and if he keeps it up, they have a positive goalie problem, hopefully, moving forward.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in just a second, but Sabres 18-3-1 in their last 22 games versus LA at home. I don't get it. I really don't.
Only play them.
They can we just play them 82 times? That would be lovely. This is the first time Buffalo scored first at home since January 17th versus Chicago. Congrats to that. That also helps when you're scoring first and you're not playing catch up, and the other team scores first and they can just pack it in their own zone and know that they can't, Sabres can't beat them. That helps a lot. Benson in his second shift, or in the second period, there was a shift that was in LA's end for 30 to 40 seconds. Just continuous, just peppering. I saw him get clobbered along the boards multiple times. I saw him go in front of the net. Even the goalie was chopping at his ankles. He gets flattened to the ground. He doesn't give up. He's one of the few players on this team that's not afraid to go to the dirty areas. And I'm very happy, like 2 or 3 minutes later, he was rewarded on a great pass from Jacob Bryson, who had a very, very good game in this one and was able to score for the first time since like December. And he is one. His numbers don't back up this style of play that he's been playing. Nobody expected him to even be on this team to start the season. So I know he's only got 5 goals on the year, and he went through that massive goal drought of like 19, 20 games, something like that. But he's one of those players that I'm not worried about. He's one of the few players that I actually enjoy watching and getting to. He can lay the hit. He's not afraid to back down. He's like 170 pounds soaking wet. I love his style of play. Now, for UPL, I was ready to come on this show and just talk so positively and so happy. He's day-to-day now with a lower body injury, so he's not even playing against Florida as they're playing right now, down 1-0. So even the nice things that the Sabres have right now, they can't keep. But he's clear and obvious the team's number one goalie, and like you said, it's a good problem to have. He's 7-5 with a 1.6 goals against and a .941 save percentage since December 30th. That also includes 3 shutouts. Philly, 7-5. What the flying fladoodle? Can this guy, those numbers, 1.6 and a 941, he's got to have freaking 12 wins there.
Yeah.
You want to know why he's not winning? Because they're not scoring goals in front of him. This is the first time. Like, he started the first 3 games out of the break. And then those first 2, guess how many combined goals they scored for him? 2. 1 in each game. And they saved it all for this game. So I agree, this game is a very, very fun game to watch. Like, I actually enjoyed watching this team, but it was so frustrating to see the potential they have, to see what players they have on that team and the great goaltending they were getting, and they wasted it all this year. And I agree that losing your top 6 players for the amount of times they have has had a minimum impact on where they're in the standings. I understand that. I'm not dismissing it. But the way you played on that Tuesday night compared to what you've played like for the other 51 games, it's disgusting. And it actually got me more angry than happy to see this win, because I saw how much potential and what they could have been this season.
Right. And
it just went all the way down the drain. Like, 7-5 with those numbers, Phil, it's just disgusting. And each one of them should go buy UPL a moped and then have him run them over with it.
Yeah, I mean, that 7-5, I mean, that is pretty much your 12-0 win streak you need to get back into playoffs. I mean, even, like, at worst, you're looking at maybe 10-2 if some other goalies step up and have a great game. But with those numbers under 2 goals a game, you're telling me the offense can consistently average 2 goals a game for 12 straight games? Like, that's just embarrassing. Like, you should have, like you mentioned, pretty much a 12-0 run with those goaltending numbers that you're getting from UPL. And if you did, that's what gets you right back in the playoff race, not going 7-5, almost 500, when your goalie's allowing less than 2 goals a game. That is just ridiculous. And as far as Benson goes, his only negatives that I've seen is that he's very young and he doesn't weigh a lot, which is nothing that he can control on pretty much either of those. I think as he gets older and as he gets bigger, he's just going to be amazing. But like you mentioned, the style of play he already has, being as young as he is and being as small as he is, to play in all the dirty areas, take all those big hits, like, he just is fearless. I mean, this is a terrible comparison as far as skill goes, and this is no offense to my former awesome player, but he honestly has a little bit of Gerby as far as the heart and hustle goes. Like, Gerby was the smallest little guy out there, yet you saw him sprinting and you saw him going after Chara, which is mind-blowing. But Benson has that kind of attitude. Like, he's a little bit of a smaller player, but he has the attitude of someone who's 6'5" and 250, going after all these guys, going in all the dirty areas, taking all those hits, and then he also just scores mind-blowing goals. I think it's the only way he really knows how to score is if it has to be highlight reel, and that's it. But like you said, I mean, I don't think you can really take anything against him and his goal drought. Like, he's a very, very young rookie, and he's on a struggling team that their top 6 can't even score, so I don't think you're going to expect a rookie who's also that young to just come out and somehow lead the team in goals when, you know, the entire team's struggling. He's going to struggle with them. So really good to see him get rewarded, though, and I think, like you mentioned, he's having a much better season than his stats show.
Yeah, and the only other thing I got, and then we can kind of move on to our final segment, is for UPL versus Levi. Remember how long Ryan Miller had to stay in the AHL before he was ready? He was down there for at least 4 years after playing, 3 or 4 years in Michigan State?
Right.
It's not a problem to leave Devin Levi down in Rochester. Like, let him cook down there. Let him develop. Yeah. The history shows, and we are guilty of this as much as anybody else, that we're ready to crown Levi a Rookie of the Year and the number 1A goaltender here. Yeah, we were fooled. We were fooled by the 9-game sample size last year. But now that we know that history repeats itself, which we should have known because that's the common theme, he needs to stay down in Rochester, develop, and cook down there while you have UPL up here. Just get UPL a better backup. UPL plays 50 to 55 games. Give him a 3-year contract in the offseason. Let him come back. Let him have the net. The only thing, and this is what I brought up on the show, and Talking Buffalo, go check it out on last Wednesday. My only fear with UPL is this is a contract year, and this is the first time that we've seen him since he was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres, which included his overseas games, which included down in the AHL, which included some time here in the NHL. This is the first time in the longest period of time that we've seen him play at this level. Now, for me, it's two things. It could either be that he has finally figured it out and that he is so composed in the net, he knows his spots, he knows where to be at all times, or this is just another blip, and this is not the true UPL, and the true UPL is what we have seen in the past. I am in the belief right now after the 7-0 win to believe that he has truly figured it out, all because, you know, goalies take longer. He didn't really have a true development plan down there. He was up and down a lot. He was injured a lot of the times. He was overcommitted and flying out of the net at all times. You don't really see that anymore. He's so packed in and knows he's got to get across the crease quick enough, and he's doing that. He's post to post so much quicker, and he's so calm in net. I'm leaning to believe this is the true UPL. Maybe the number's not that true. I'm sure those are going to come back to earth eventually, but I'm one to believe that this is the true UPL now that he's figured it out, and not that this is just a small blip. But Kevin Adams, I wouldn't go paying him like $7-8 million a year. I would give him like a $3 to $5 million for 3 years and see what you truly got, and let him be your 1A starting next year.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take overpaying him either. Like, he's very young. I think he understands.
He's RFA, so he can't go anywhere.
Right, and he doesn't have a huge sample size either. So I feel like he doesn't have a lot of bargaining behind trying to ask for a big contract. So I think he'll get some kind of 3-year, even like you just said, $3 million. I really don't think he'll need to be paid a lot. I did just try to pull up how long he was in the AHL just to kind of see, and it's very confusing. He was
it's sporadic.
Over that's the place. What I mean. I have no idea. He played one game in 2018-2019 for the Americans, then went to the OHL, the WJC, which is obviously World Juniors, but then he went to the AHL for 10 games, then the ECHL, and then he was on the Sabres for 4 games, then he went back to the Americans for 14 games, the Sabres for 9, the Americans for 35, Sabres for 33, Americans for 9, and Sabres now for 29. So he didn't even have, I mean, if you figure just since 2021 where he was a little bit more part of the organization, he had 14 and then 35 and 9. And then he was bouncing back between AHL and the Sabres as well, as far as just, play time and everything. So he had what is that math? 35, oh my gosh, 50, 60-ish games. So about one season's worth sporadically of AHL time to develop. So, I mean, give Levi a full, like you mentioned, give Levi a full year down there and let him do what he needs to do. And that's not even a shot at Levi. Like, he needs to develop. It's nothing against him. We understand he was one of the greatest college goalies to ever exist pretty much, but the NHL is very different and you still need to develop. So hopefully they will give UPL his deal that he deserves, and then Levi will just spend some time in the AHL doing what he needs to do.
Yeah, so as good as this win was, they're still 10 points back of a playoff spot. So don't count your what's the saying? Don't count your
chickens before they hatch.
Chickens before they hatch. There you go. But 30 more games in the season. They're down 1-0 after the first period versus Florida, and they're probably going to lose 4-1, and then we're going to rant and rave on Sunday.
Yeah, unlikely
on
that they win 3 in a row. So
yeah, Sam Reinhart, where'd you go, buddy? But let's move on to our final topic here. Bandits back off the bye. Phil, are you ready for 10 straight weeks of Buffalo Bandits action?
I am sick of these buys. Get them out of here.
Me too. They're done. 3 buys out of the first 12 weeks, or 11 weeks, I should say. They're done. And 10 straight weeks of Buffalo Bandits action. Starting off in the nest in Halifax. Both teams are coming in 5-3. Buffalo is tied for second in goals for with 13. Halifax leads the way with 13.3. So very, very similar. Buffalo goals against, this is where it differs, 12.38, which is good for 11th in the league, and Halifax in fifth, 11.13.
Just crazy. Again, we're probably going to mention this until that number drops, but just the defense and Vince. I think Vince is still playing well, but he's clearly not playing quite up to the spectacular ability that he did last year, and the defense is not doing him any favors, and just that number of the Bandits' defense, something that they are pretty much known for. I know they're obviously a very good offense, but their defense has always been one of the best as well, especially with Vince back there. Just that 11th in the league is crazy, and then 12.38 a game is just very un-Buffalo-like. So hopefully with the week off, again, you're not going to make any monumental changes in one bye week other than maybe some rest, but hopefully they took a really hard look at what's been going on with the defense the last 4 games where they're giving up, I think it was 14 goals a game, which is just really, really bad. And I don't know, tried to figure something out to be a little bit better. And this is a very, very tough test right off your bye week. Halifax, as you mentioned, number 1 in the entire league in goals a game. So that's not really the test you're looking for, but at the same time, it kind of is. Really tells you where the defense and Vince are. So hopefully they can come out of this game, hold Halifax to 12, and we'll call it a win.
Yeah, we're going into week 12. I'm hoping and more leaning towards this way just because the first 11 weeks didn't go their way with the defensive side of the ball. Maybe they need to go on a rhythm run here and little RR action, and maybe back-to-back games where if they find a roll and can roll with it, they can fix the defense. So maybe these off weeks, these bye weeks that are usually a needed thing for teams that are going through some stuff to try to figure it out and use that advantage and use that to their advantage. Maybe this is just a team that wants to go on that roll, that wants to play week after week after week, game after game after game, and can kind of get on that roll. We kind of saw it earlier in the season after that Albany one. They went 3 straight weeks of allowing under 10 goals. So we know it's in them. We know they can play that style of game, and we'll see with these next 10 weeks if they can do it. And last year, they faced Halifax twice, back-to-back weeks, same score both times, 10-9 in Halifax on the 3rd of March, and then 10-9 in Buffalo in overtime on the 10th. Kluch won it in overtime. They were down 10-6 going into the 4th. This is a game where you didn't have a lot of your big dogs last year. Nanakoke didn't play in Game 2. Kluch didn't play in Game 1. Byrne didn't play in Game 1. Brandon Robinson didn't play in both games. Frazier didn't play in either game. So it was definitely a game where you had to have McKay up top. You had to have, Byrne lit it up in Game 2, going 3, 6, and 9. Smith had 12 points in both games. Vince played out of his mind, only allowing 12 goals. But then you flip it to the other side. Stotts had 9 points in this one. Benesh had 7. But everybody else, they were pretty much held in check.
Yeah, I think the offense I'm not worried about in the slightest bit.
Correct.
Right
Yep.
now.
Same.
I mean, not even just their, goals per game average being number 2, tied for number 2 with 13, which is insane on its own right, but like they're just playing incredible lacrosse right now. So, I mean, I don't even really know. I mean, it'll be interesting, I guess. I mean, Halifax really hasn't seen what Buffalo's full offense that it is this year, what it can look like and what it can do with, like you mentioned, so many players from last year didn't play in both or either of these games. So, I mean, Halifax really doesn't know firsthand what the Buffalo offense looks like, but at the same time, I'm just not worried about the Buffalo offense. I am worried about the Halifax offense. That team is looking really good. I think they have a lot of interesting things going on, especially with Benesh, who seems to still be really good, but he's getting up there in age. I feel like he's taken a little bit of a back seat this year and just being more of a supportive player who can absolutely still score and puts up a lot of points, but he's very quiet, which he always has been. But I feel like even this year he's just really kind of hiding in the shadows of that team, and he's not one of the more known guys anymore as far as just who on their offense is, throwing a lot of shots at and everything, and he's just kind of taking a back seat, but still quietly performing really, really well.
I would have to disagree with that, but that's just my opinion. But we'll get into that in a second. I know that Nanakoke was put on the IR. We got to remember that before their last game. They went on bye, so hopefully he used this bye to kind of get healthy. Otherwise, you're probably going to see Christian Watts in the same rotation that you saw the week before, where you got 3 lefties and 4 righties. I think you're kind of expecting that either way if Nanakoke comes back or Watts stays in. So stay tuned for the injury report that the NLL puts out. Hopefully, since their website's semi-working, their stat page still isn't working. Thanks, Graham Perot, for NLL Stats, because you're saving the absolute day right now for a lot of content creators, but we'll give you another thanks in a minute. But before we dive into the players to watch, the milestones, the predictions, everything like that, Phil, you mentioned it on the last show. We got our first sponsor, and I'm going to let you take this away to tell us who is sponsoring this episode from the BSC.
Yeah, we did, and we are very excited about them. It is Tap That Tap Room at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. It is the Buffalo's first woman-owned self-pour bar. It features 30 consistently rotating taps, which offers a variety of beers, ciders, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages. So pretty much anything you could possibly look for as far as alcohol goes, they have it. You can have as little or much as you want. If you find one in your first pour and you love it, keep going back to it. But if you want to try all 30, go ahead and try all 30. If you want just 1 ounce of all of them, have at it. You can sit down with your favorite drink and sample what they have on hand, or find a new favorite at their large patio with board and card games for everyone, including your dog, as they are dog friendly. So if you have a dog, bring it on down.
Yeah, and they also have Bandits watch parties, so whether you have a ticket to the game or the Bandits are out of town and you would like to go watch it with a bunch of other Buffalo Bandits fans, not only can you watch it, But if you don't have season tickets like Phil and I do and producer Pat does, they have ticket giveaways for the away games that you attend. They have, I made that more confusing than it had to be. They have tickets for home games at the away games that you go watch the watch party for. There we go. I'm getting to it. But the fun part about this is not only are they sponsoring us, but Phil and I will be in attendance today at the 6:30 Halifax game. So if you want to stop by and say hi, we're going to be there. We can't wait. I'm speaking for myself here, Phil. I can't wait to try this kind of thing. I haven't been to a self-pour brewery, so I'm interested to see how it goes. Brooke is going to be my DD, so if I get a little bit too happy and find my favorite beer over there, she can drive me home. But I am very excited, not just for trying out this place, but to officially have our first sponsor on the podcast. So can't thank them enough for some reason. Don't know why, but they want to sponsor two idiots here that are just talking Buffalo sports.
Yeah, appreciate them giving us a shot, and we are really excited to go down there and watch the game.
Yeah, we can't wait to see everybody there. So we'll dive back into this. Players to watch tonight. I'm used to the Saturday games. We'll go over the forwards, the righties, Clark Peterson, number 24, Austin Stotts, number 33, Aaron Woods, the rookie, the 28-year-old rookie, number 7, and then Randy Stotts. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on him. He was put on the IR. He's only played in 5 of their 8 games so far. Number 83, again, he's on IR, so keep an eye on if they activate him. And then over on the lefties, Ryan Benesh, number 17. We've already talked a little bit about him. Bo Hunter, number 85. Jameson, number 88. And Dawson Thied, number 51. This offense is absolutely loaded and dangerous.
Yeah, as far as watching them went, the last 2 games, which is usually the sample size to try to take from, they were able to score 11 in-tight goals, 13 mid-range, only 3 far, and 3 transitions. So not a huge transition team, but we'll get to that. But the biggest thing, they are a very fast-moving offense. They love quick-stick goals. They just whip the ball around. They find ways to get inside, and they are extremely lethal, as their goals per game average suggests. They are really, really good. And to me, one of the more interesting players to watch is Aaron Woods. Like you mentioned, 2 games played. He's a rookie, and in his first 2 games, he has 4, 8, and 12. Pretty incredible start to your NLL career, to start your first 2 games with 12 points. He's already becoming someone you have to keep an eye on, which is not great. They don't need any more weapons on this team. So to add a rookie to the already growing team and have him perform right out of the gate as well as he is, just adds more things you have to be worrisome and careful of. And this offense is just up and down, very, very scary.
So I know Clark Peterson. I always called him Pedersen last year because of the double T's, but apparently it's Peterson. Whatever. I guess I'll oblige and call it Peterson. He leads the way with 42 points. You know, Randy Stotts is a big name because he's got 2 other brothers in the league. Austin Stotts is the other big one. Austin Shanks, he's coming on with 34 points. He's more of a distributor. Ryan Benesh, like I said, is just an absolute lethal goal scorer. And then Cody Jameson is just a clutch goal scorer that, won their 1 overtime versus Philly with the clutch goal. The player that I am most concerned with, though, is a lesser-known player that if you're just an average NLL fan, you might not have really heard about him. You might have heard him in passing with some fighting and stuff like that. Former NHL player, finally turned full-time pro, is Dawson Thied. He has caught my eye. I've watched every single one of Halifax games along with every other single NLL game this season so far. Dawson Thied, though, he's got 13, 13, and 26 on the year. But he's that massive body, and not just because he has the body like a Zed Williams that tortured Buffalo 2 seasons ago, or these other bigger body guys. He is so agile as well. He's got speed. He is the complete package, and because he's not the go-to guy on this offense, a lot of times, for as big as he is, teams lose him, and teams forget all about him, and he makes them pay. And for a defense that has broken down on certain play sets and certain games, and teams have gone on runs against the Buffalo Bandits defense, Dawson Thied scares the absolute bejesus out of me, because I think he could be if the Bandits drop this one, I think Dawson Thied is a main reason that the Buffalo Bandits will lose to Halifax, if in fact they do.
Yeah, I just pulled it up really, really quickly. And his career high coming into the season was 27 points, and he's sitting with 26 already halfway through the season. I do agree, and I think he is. You already mentioned the comparison. Zed Williams, that was the question I was going to ask you about him. Does he remind you of him? And clearly he does, because you already pulled out that comparison. So, and like you mentioned,
Zed Williams, but like more agile
a little
and
less
more
of a bully
speed.
and more of just
he can do that part of it,
absolutely.
but he's the full package that doesn't need to be right now because of all the other talent around him.
Right. Like if he was on a different team that wasn't surrounded by that, maybe
he'd be up there with like 50, 60 points. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, he's absolutely one to keep an eye on. I was going to mention him, but I knew you really wanted to, so I was going to let him go. And their last two games, their big, heavy shooters were Peterson, Shanks, Theed, and Jameson as far as the people putting up a lot of shots. So definitely one to keep an eye on. And just the whole offense they're scary. They're very scary. And this game, if the Bandits want to win, as much as I hope their defense takes a step forward, I feel like it's going to be on the offense to really carry the load against a team like this.
So on defense in transition, there are no slouches either. Big names back there. Jake Withers, I know you're going to talk about him, so I'm not going to mention him much. Ryan Tarafanko, he is a very underrated transition player. He's 3, 4, and 7 on the year, but those numbers don't back up what an actual skilled player he is. Tyson Bell, I believe he's Dane Smith's cousin or brother-in-law, something. What is it?
Cousin.
Brother-in-law?
I think cousin.
Cousin,
Maybe
brother-in-law, one of them. They're related somehow. So there you go. Number 98, number 94, and then the webbed monster, maybe that's how we call him, Graham Hossack, number 4, former defensive player of the year with his stupid little web feet. 52 loose balls on the year. Their defense is really, really good, but go ahead and take it away with your man crush, Jake Withers.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to say about him. He's really good at lacrosse. He obviously, like you mentioned, has 133 loose balls and 74% in the faceoff dot, and he's just really good. I mean, even I think it was their last game, he had a pretty much solo effort to score, and I think that's something he's really added this year. I know he only has 5 goals, which doesn't seem like a lot, but in close games, if he can go out there, stay on the field, and get you a goal, and you're going to win by 1, that goal means a lot. So he is someone that you have to keep an eye on, and he is just going to be a nightmare, I assume, for Ian McKay, and I don't think McKay's really looking forward to it, considering he doesn't even really love being a face-off guy to begin with. So going up against one of the league's best doesn't sound like something he's interested in. And like you mentioned, their defense is really good. Tyson Bell is one of the better players on the team. Tarafanko, also really good. And then Hossack is just one of the game's best shutdown defensemen, and even though he has the duck feet, he does play really, really well, and he is a very solid stay-at-home defenseman.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned McKay. McKay, may the force be with you, because man,
just
you're
going
against
havoc somehow.
Yeah,
but
havoc
is also feisty little guy.
Yeah, just play smart. Don't take any dumb penalties off the face-offs, whether it's McKay or anybody else that's out there, because Withers is. Which is very confusing to me, Phil. I have a bone to pick with you about this.
Here we go.
I like these type of players. You typically don't. So I don't know what's up with Jake Withers that tugs on your heartstrings, and maybe it's because it's Valentine's Day, but I'm just confused with it because he might not be as big of a nuisance on the field as some of the other guys that I like, but he is up there with some of the best of them because no matter what the play is, he's one of the last ones to leave the scuffle.
But my thing with him is that he backs it up. If someone wants to fight him, he'll fight.
Okay.
And Sean
fair.
Williams, every time you wanted to fight him, he just walked away.
I get it. We can move on. You proved your point. You made me look like an idiot. Let's move on to the goalie, Warren Hill, 5-3, 10.93 goals against and a 76 save percentage, but he's been very up and down this year, and I think the biggest issue with Halifax, if they do not win a title this season or don't finish as one of the top 3 seeds or top 4 seeds or get a home playoff game to start the playoffs, I think it's going to come down to Warren Hill because he is not that consistent, steady presence in net. He can struggle at times. He's let in, 16, 15 some odd goals a few games. And he's gone on streaks where he just lets in the easy goal, but there are other games where he just completely shuts down the other team. So it'll be interesting to see which Warren Hill we get in this one.
Right. I mean, the last 2 games, he's let in 14 and 10, but then against Rochester, one of the better offenses in the league, they only let in 8. So, like you mentioned, it's hard to know. And then in the last 2 games, he had 8 in tight, 14 from the mid-range area, only 2 far, and then 5 transition goals, what they allowed. So it is a team. I know the Bandits aren't a very big transition team, but the Halifax Thunderbirds seem to be a team that you can get transition goals on. So I do wonder if the Bandits will try to make that a bit more of a focus in this game. But in general, mid-range goals, to me, like in tight, I really don't blame the goalie on. I mean, you're asking for an incredible save. If they get it, congratulations. If you don't, I really don't blame that. I mean, in tight goals to me are more on the defense, allowing that player to get right on top of the crease and on top of your goalie. But mid-range is kind of what you just mentioned. Like, that's the one he seems to be struggling with, and that is more on your goalie than it is on your defense, because mid-range is okay, but they should be stopped. Obviously, far, you pretty much want all stop. Mid-range, you should be stopping a decent amount of them. Then in tight's really difficult. So to allow 14 mid-range goals in 2 games, that's a lot. And a lot of that is on the goalie. So like you mentioned, he's very hot and cold. He can have a game where he plays incredible, and he can have a game where he struggles. So hopefully with how incredible the Bandits offense is, they can find a way to get to him early and just kind of rattle him and throw him off for the rest of the game.
So we went over the history. We went over what the averages are. We went over the players to watch. With all that said now, Phil, what is your prediction for this game? I know the BSC picks are out and Pat continues to kill it. Brooke stood in for Pat Schwab's producer Pat's proxy last Wednesday when he was unable to make his picks, and they still went 4-2. It's ridiculous. I went 1-5. We're falling further and further back. We have to catch him. So if you notice that on Wednesday, we have the Buffalo Bandits winning. Are you hedging your bet here, or are you sticking with your Buffalo Bandits winning over Halifax?
No, I really don't think the Bandits, I know the defense is playing not the best. Vince isn't playing the best, but with the offense doing what it's doing and just the team in general, I really don't think there's many teams right now that scare me. I know Toronto is obviously still very scary. Halifax is still a really good team. San Diego is still a really good team. But if the Bandits put a complete game together or even a decent game together, there really still aren't too many teams that can hang with them. They are the champions for a reason, and the little bit of a run that they're on right now is proving that they can beat the elite teams in the entire league. So to me, I don't think it's going to be 10-11. This is 2 of the best offenses in the entire league. I expect it to be high scoring. I'm going 16-15 with a Bandits victory.
Man, I thought I was guessing high, and that's even higher than me. I also am not hedging my bet. I am having Bandits win this one, but I'm doing a little bit more science with my prediction here. Now, I'm the only one here that has predicted their score correctly, and I've done it twice. And the second time I did it 4 games ago, and it didn't take a Max Adler penalty shot to do it. But, Phil, there have been 3 games this year where the winning team scored 15 goals. There are 3 times this year where the losing team scored 13 goals. Phil, I got them winning 15-13, and guess what also coincides with 15-13 win? The Rochester game in Rochester when I had them picked 15-13 win, and they won 15-13. So I'm going back to the well. Hopefully it's not bone dry. Hopefully the ground isn't having a drought, and I get it again and go 3 times.
I don't know if having 3-3 in all the games that have been played around the NLL is very good science.
No, but it's better than your science.
I mean, that's fair. Mine's just a gut feeling. But, when you predict a championship game and the victor, you come talk to me.
I still have not done that either. And I don't even think I've picked the right finalists.
All right, so we're even-ish.
Every time I come up with something fun, Phil, you find some salt and you just push it in the wound. And that's what this whole episode's been like.
Well, you're coming at me with these predicted scores.
I am. That's the only thing I got over here right now.
You opened this.
I did. I opened the can of worms, and worms are eating my brain. Okay, here we go. Milestones. It is the fastest milestone minute. all these possible milestones can be found on X at Buffalo Sports Co. We post them on the lead up to each game, and because this is Friday, all these are going to be posted on Friday. I don't have just 2 days to space them out. I got 1 day to space them out before the game's played. So if you miss any of these ones, you can listen back, or you can just go to Buffalo Sports Co. at X. Phil, we got a ton of them here. Just kidding. There's only 3. Here we go. If Justin Martin plays on Friday, he will play in his 100th career NLL game. Dane Smith is 1 cause turnover away from 100 for his career. I think they've said this like 4 times now. He averages .59 a game. And the last one, Ian McKay, is 20 faceoffs away from tying Darius Kilgore for 8th place in Buffalo Bandits history with 476.
I'm excited for him to get to 500. That'll be interesting. Kind of a fun round number of faceoffs, and coming into the league, I really wonder if you ever asked him like how many faceoffs he thought he might take in his career. I assume it'd be less than 500. And here we are, and hopefully for Dane Smith, he gets a pick and score like he did in the one game where he picked it off and then ran all the way down and scored, and it was amazing. Hopefully he does that. I think it was against New York, and then they lost. So there you go.
Yeah, I would also love that, so I can check it off my board here. But, right. Yeah, this might be the smallest milestone minute we've ever had.
We finally got some of the big ones out of the way. And, again, does Matt Vince, look at the 100th career game with Justin Martin, just be like, yo, try to catch up.
Yeah, you're 177, 78 behind me. Yeah, catch up. But, yeah, that's the only milestones, like I said. If somehow you miss those 3... you can go to Buffalo Sports Co. on X, and we post those all the time, and you can track it on your own there. But let's look at our final spot here, NLL Look Around. There are 4 other games going on. The Unbox series in quote-unquote Montreal, because it's not actually even in Montreal. Whoop-de-doo for you guys up there. Toronto is facing off against New York on Friday at 7 p.m. Later on that night, after both the Bandits game and the Rock versus New York game, Philly in Vegas. That's an interesting one. Friday at 10 p.m. Colorado is in Albany on Saturday at 7. And then the only game on Sunday, along with the only game on Saturday, which I just mentioned, but Halifax, once again, 2 times in one weekend, has a game, but this time they travel to Calgary Sunday at 7 p.m. So we won't be able to review that game on our next show, but they are still playing.
I wonder if post-Super Bowl is like a really big concert startup again, or maybe NHL startup again. It's very, very strange to have 3 Friday games, 1 Saturday, 1 Sunday. I know the NLL, like we've mentioned a lot, is low on the totem pole for arenas, but 1 Saturday game seems insane, and then to throw a Sunday game in there seems crazy, and then 3 Friday seems crazy. So I wonder what happens around the nation on this weekend that they could not get many arenas. That's very interesting. As far as the games go, New York, we'll see if they can keep surprising us. I mean, we're just entering.
Well, surprising me. I'll give you credit. They're not surprising you.
Well, I don't know.
See,
if I
can go both ways, Phil. I'm good. I'm giving you credit.
I don't know if I had them doing this well. I'm not saying their record, but even beating San Diego, I did not think they were necessarily ready to do that. So, with that in mind, I think it's going to be interesting for Toronto to go up against them. I do think Toronto can pull it off and win. I don't think it would be an upset by any means, but New York on a 4-game winning streak. We need New York. I don't know. Do we need New York to win? I feel like we don't want them to keep winning almost in a weird way because we lost to them. So I don't know. That's a weird one. I could see that going either way, and honestly, it could be a really good game with New York coming on strong recently. Philly and Las Vegas, I don't know. You're a big Vegas guy for the second half, so hopefully they do what you need them to do. Colorado and Albany. Colorado is trying to stay alive. Albany is on a 2-game losing streak, and we need them to keep losing.
Yep.
So I think I had Colorado winning that, mainly because Albany's been on a slide. I want to see them get off it, and Colorado is extremely desperate for a win now, especially after losing in overtime. So I think they're going to come out like their season is on the line, because it is. And then Halifax and Calgary again. I mean, it's good for the Bandits that Halifax has to go all the way to New York, and then I know they get a day off, but they have to go all the way back to Calgary.
They don't have to go to New York. They're
I meant home. Buffalo. Sorry, Buffalo. The New York State is what I meant.
They're in
home. Yeah, isn't Halifax?
That's what I was saying.
Isn't Halifax? I mean, I was still said it wrong either way, but isn't Halifax on this side of the world? Right?
You're asking the wrong guy here,
We've looked
Phil.
this up so many times.
We have.
I mean,
and
I still
guess
said
what?
it very
My memory
wrong.
is a goldfish.
All right, Halifax, geography. You talk about them, I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up. Halifax back-to-back games this weekend. At least they got a game for travel in this one rather than, I think it was San Diego that had back-to-back, and they had to travel to Vegas and Colorado. So that's going to be an interesting one because Halifax is sitting in the driver's seat, but if they lose both games, they drop to 500. Calgary's trying to get back to 500. They could go to 4-5, I believe. I believe they're sitting at 3-5 right now. Colorado and Albany. Albany's trying to stop a skid from losing 3 in a row after a 6-0 start. They do get Doug Jamieson back in this one. They're the standalone game on Saturday, so all the eyes are going to be on that one. But Colorado's also trying to fight back. They're 3-6. They drop another one and drop to 3-7. Their season's like on its final heartbeats where they have to figure out a way to pull this one out. Philly and Vegas, both teams trying to save their season. Philly definitely needs to get on a hot streak here because they've only played 7 games, 11 games to go, and 10 straight weeks of action in 11 games. That I know April and March, I said them in the wrong order, but I'm all flustered here, are going to be jam-packed actions. I think they have 3 games in like 6 days coming up at the end of March, so they really need to start stacking wins if they want to try to climb back out of this hole. And then New York and Toronto, I think that's the game not just everybody is watching because it's the unboxed one. This is the one that they've been promoting for God knows how long now. They get the special jerseys. It's in quote-unquote Montreal, but both teams are actually good, and I think this is the best outcome that the NLL could have hoped for. Before they chose this 2 matchups, New York was kind of just this who knows kind of team. They were sitting 0-3 to start the season, bouncing back. They've won 4 in a row, 5 of the last 6 going against one of the top tier teams in Toronto in the league. I'm excited to come home from the tap room that we're going to be watching the game there and rewatch this game. Well, not rewatch it, but watch this game. Phil, take it away. Where's Halifax?
We're struggling to end this episode. It's pretty much East Coast to West Coast. So Halifax is even farther east of us. Like they're over in Nova Scotia,
north
which
of
is
Maine?
way east. They're pretty much in the ocean, if you want to call it that, from compared to us. So honestly, it'd be better if they were playing in Buffalo and then went to Calgary because we are actually closer to Calgary than Halifax is. But they pretty much, as far as distance, it looks like they got to go like East Coast to West Coast. So
it's a good thing they're a bird.
Comparison. Yeah, they can fly for sure.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But yeah, 4 more games besides Bandits one to kick off this weekend of action. Remember, there's only 10 more weeks of NLL action before the playoffs kick off. So as much as we're saying that it's still the early season, we're more than halfway through this NLL season. And let's Bandits need to get this 6th win and try to gain that head-to-head advantage over Halifax because right now with their records, they're going to be neck and neck all the way through the rest of the season, and having that head-to-head advantage when the seeding's handed out is going to be clutch. So, Phil, is there anything else you would like to add to this episode before we shut it down for an NLL weekend ahead of us?
Every game counts, and come out to Tap That Tap Room. Come see us, watch the game, win some tickets for a future home game, and even if you have season tickets, win tickets and tell some of your friends that don't go to a Bandits game because they should go.
Agreed. Yeah, don't be afraid to come up and say hi to us. I'm just this, what are you hearing behind the mic? I'm still that big of an idiot, so I might not remember who you are after that night because there's a lot of taps there that I'm going to try out here, Phil. There's a lot of things I'm excited about, and I'm going to sample a lot of stuff. I'm going to see if I can sample all 30 of them that night. Don't tell Brooke because she might have to drive me home. Yeah. So we're going to end this one before we go watch some Buffalo Bandits action. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can find my most recent article for the Power Rankings Week 12 that dropped yesterday, and then Phil's article for the Bandits versus Halifax will be out on Tuesday. So not even out yet. The game hasn't even played yet. What do you expect from the poor man? Don't expect that much. Jesus. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.